What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel. Okay, so picking up with Injustice Year 3, things get kind of... wow, they get a little crazier than they did in the last, I guess really this is volume 2 of Year 3, than they did in volume 1. But this is really cool because remember, Superman basically was knocked out with like magic pills. You know, it really just kind of took him out. And so because of this, what we do is we pick up with Superman's dream. And this is like one of the most beautiful moments of like the whole of Year 3. It's so beautifully written and it's so beautifully done because what this does is this goes all the way back to the beginning, right? We pick up with the very beginning of Year 3. And the reason why Tom Taylor did this is because again, like right now, like we're in the middle of like magic wielders and things are only going to get crazy when we find out who the Spectre really is. But things get like wild. I mean, there's magic wielding and there's the House of Mystery that's coming up and all kinds of crazy things here. And so it's so easy to forget how far we've come in this story. And so Tom Taylor kind of winding it back all the way to the beginning basically reminds us that all this happened because the Joker tricked Superman into believing that Lois Lane was Doomsday. Now, of course, this goes a totally separate road. With Superman, you know, racing Doomsday off into space only to realize that it's Lois Lane, the Joker makes his own little comment, makes his own little joke, and Superman flies Lois Lane back down only for her to basically wake up, you know, for her to basically survive the experience, you know, and it's like, wow, so both Lois Lane and this unborn child have survived, and Superman, you know, of course, is able to live the life that he wanted to live. Now, of course, this kind of picks up with the whole idea of where he's at right now in the real world, in the sense he's still got his yellow lantern ring, you know, he's still unconscious. Lex Luthor and these members of the Justice League are still trying to figure out what to do with him. And it's the Spectre also saying, look, I don't know that I can wake him up. Somehow this is beyond my ability to take care of. You know, Superman is essentially unconscious and there's nothing that I can do here on this mortal plane. There's no way I can bring him back. And so what we do is we jump back to this dream. And this is an amazing dream because Superman immediately turns his sights to the Joker with the intention of killing him. Now, of course, Batman gets in the way. And Batman says, no, look, you cannot kill the Joker. Like, I'll take the Joker, I'll take him back. We'll find a way to keep him behind bars forever, but he's never going to hurt you again. And so this is crazy. And for us as the reader, it's kind of like, well, how's Batman going to make that happen? I mean, you got to remember, Batman, you know, he never kills anybody. Batman always has this belief, this code that people can be fixed, that the problems that people solve can be taken care of. The crazy thing about this is that the Joker keeps going on, you know, keeps going at it with Batman. Hey, you know, don't give me the stink eye, Batman. Like, it's just, this is part of our game. You know, this is part of our whole thing. We always go back and forth. I do something crazy, then you catch me. Then I do something crazier and then you catch me. And this is Batman basically taking the same road as Superman. This is Batman coming to the realization that there is no coming back for the Joker. There is no way to fix the Joker. Every time, as long as the Joker exists, he's always going to come back and he's always going to do something like this. So what does Batman do? He breaks his neck. Batman kills the Joker. And it's just like, holy cow, because then he comes flying up on the steps of the Gotham Police Department, opens the door of the Batmobile and says, I need to report a crime. He basically confesses that he just killed the Joker. And this is crazy because what this does is this picks up after the birth of the child of Lois Lane and Superman, you know, the daughter of him, that it's Lara Lane Kent is the name they choose to go with. And this is a really, really cool situation because what we do is we follow Superman to Metropolis Prison. This is one of the coolest things ever because when Superman sits down and talks to Batman, you know, talks to Bruce Wayne to tell him that his child was born, Batman basically says, hey, look, the Joker almost destroyed the entire city. He almost cost you everything you know and love. He had to die. He had to go away, you know, and this is when Superman realizes that Batman did this. Batman basically sacrificed his freedom in order to make sure that Superman and his family could live. Superman stands up and walks right through the prison wall, just walks right through it. And it's so crazy because whenever we think about Superman, like we know he's bulletproof, right? It's like, yeah, man, Superman's bulletproof. Bullets bounce off of him. He can sustain these incredible things. We never see this kind of depiction of Superman as the Man of Steel. We never see him just like walk through a wall. I mean, there have been stories where he has, but he just walks through a wall and embraces Bruce Wayne. And it's like these juxtapositions. It's the hardcore nature of Superman in terms of what he's capable of, his durability, his strength, combined with like the tender nature of Superman when he hugs Bruce Wayne as a brother. And it's like, you sacrificed everything in order to make sure that my family could live. Now, of course, Superman's like, look, man, say the word and you're out of here. Say the word and I will get you out of here. No one's gonna stop us. You know, these guys have guns pointed on us. The only reason why these cops are holding their guns is because I'm allowing them to hold their guns. Like, they live by my wish and want. You know, they live because I allow them to. You know, he's like, say the word and you're a free man. But Batman says no. Batman says, look, I have a code of ethics. People who commit crimes have to pay for those crimes. People who commit murder have to pay for that murder, you know? And so he's like, I have to deal with the consequences of my actions. And it's a great kind of turning point here because it's Tom Taylor saying, here's how things could have been. Here's the direction things could have gone in. It didn't have to go the way that it did. Not only that, this is Superman's dream. And so inside the mind of Superman, this is how it should have been. This is how it should have gone, which begs the question, why is Superman allowing things to stay on the road that they're on? Why doesn't he just turn back? Now, he'll explain that here in a little bit, but it kind of, it jumps forward over the course of time. It's Superman holding his daughter when she's a baby, the daughter of Superman and Lois Lane saying her first word, walking for the first time, learning that she has powers for the first time, flying, learning how to use her heat vision. It's these beautiful moments because the daughter of Superman is growing up to become a superhero. And it's like this beautiful moment because, again, this is how everything should have gone. This is how beautiful this whole universe should have been, how this timeline should have been. Not only that, there comes a point when Superman and his daughter have this discussion, when the question is, why don't we just stop them from hurting themselves? And it's really Superman teaching his daughter a moral lesson. When she basically says, well, we have the power to do that. We have the power to force the world to see things our way. But she says, it's not what we do. Like, we're superheroes. We lead people. We don't force them to do anything. We don't make them do what we want to. We show them the light. And so what they do, what the daughter of Superman does is she sits down with the world and says, look, my father's from another world. You never saw him as one of you. But I am one of you. I am born of this world and I am born of Krypton. I am a human being in every sense of the word. I'm an earthling in every sense of the word. And what I want to do is I want to show you a better world. I want to show you a better place. I want to lead you to a much better existence where there is no more war, where there is no more starving, no more chaos, no more disease, no more illness. I want to lead you to the utopia that you so desperately desire. And it's like, wow, this is just a beautiful moment between all of them, between this whole story. But what happens is this story all just kind of begins to whisk away. It all just kind of begins to go away. And it's like a crushing thing for Superman because it's like, it's a glimpse. It's a glimpse of what life could have been, of how beautiful life could have been, and it's gone. And so what we do is we switch over to a setting sun. And this is beautiful as well. That's why I love Tom Taylor's writing. We switch over to a setting sun, and it's Superman and Wonder Woman. It's really this thing where the two of them come together, where Superman says, yeah, the setting sun is it's almost the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And it's basically the two of them getting together, the two of them sharing a romance in Wonder Woman, saying, look, I know I could never ever replace Lois Lane, but I want to do the best I can at your side. I want to do the best that I can to save you. Well, then suddenly we switch over to Wonder Woman only to find out this was Wonder Woman's dream. Like this second little bit with the setting sun was Wonder Woman's dream. She's been brought out of her reverie and has been done so by the fact that Hera basically made a pact with Zeus. Now, that's when things kind of start to go a little awry. When we get into year 4 and year 5, things get a little wild. I'm not even sure if I'm going to cover those, to be honest. It gets a little crazy, but well, I may end up covering those. I'm not sure yet. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about that. But when she comes to, the question is, where's Superman? And this is when Ares, the god of war, says, look, a lot's happened since you've been gone. A lot has been going on since you've been knocked unconscious. Because remember, Wonder Woman's been unconscious since the attempt of Batman to basically break into the Fortress of Solitude and steal the super pills, since the death of Oliver Queen. And so she's missed all that stuff. She missed the whole of year 2. She missed almost everything in year 2. And so what we do is we switch back to the Tower of Fate. And then of course we pick back up with Batman, and we pick back up with John Constantine. And it's kind of this analysis of where everything stands right now, in the sense that they still have, all these different members of the Justice League. Not everybody, but they still have a huge number of the Justice League. But then when Wonder Woman shows up where the Justice League are located in the remnants of the Hall of Justice, this is when she realizes that Superman's a member of the Yellow Lantern Corps, of the Sinestro Corps. And the first thing she does is attack Sinestro, because remember, she's not nearly as clouded by, by remorse, or I guess guilt, or what have you, by mourning. For her mind is clear. She's a warrior. All she wants to do is fight. But she's not caught up in the whole emotional aspect like Superman is. She basically hasn't experienced being tricked and, being led into this ruse. Now the question has to be asked, if she was here when Sinestro was there, would she have been the voice of reason? Or would she have fallen just as quickly as Superman did under the influence of Sinestro? Now, of course, in the middle of all this, because of the fact that the god of war, because Ares is there, he basically uses the same kind of enchantments and so on that was used by the Hippolyta of Themyscira to bring Wonder Woman out of her ruse. Ares uses the exact same thing to bring Superman out of his whole dreamscape. And so this is the crazy thing. This is one of the things that I didn't really care for too much, because we have Yellow Lantern Superman Superman, and I felt like Tom Taylor may have written himself into a wall. And the reason why is because, Wonder Woman's like, why are you wearing a Sinestro Corps ring? Like, the Sinestro Corps stands for evil. It stands for darkness. It stands for fear. We do not inspire fear. We lead people. We're doing what we think is the right thing, not because we want to scare people, but because we want them to see that our way is right. And so just by way of this little bit of reason, Superman just kind of casts aside his Sinestro ring, Wonder Woman crushes it, and that's that. Now, this is why we learn why it is that Superman, after having that dream, did not allow things to go that way, has not basically given up his cause. And the reason why is because he tells Wonder Woman, look, I had this dream where Lois was still alive. I had this dream where I had a daughter. I had this dream where everything unfolded the way that I wanted it to. But then I wake up and I remember everything is gone. And so this is, again, Tom Taylor reminding us that Superman is just overcome with guilt and with grief and with mourning. He's not thinking rationally, he's thinking emotionally. The bane of humanity's existence is thinking emotionally. It's the one thing that causes problems more than anything else. Instead, it's Superman not thinking rationally. It's not him being intelligent, making smart decisions. It's him making emotional decisions. But in the middle of all this, we basically have the Spectre appearing to Superman yet again and saying, we found Cyborg, we found Robin, we found Flash. They're all in the Tower of Fate. And so they basically race off. And this is when Dr. Fate appears to Batman. He appears to John Constantine and says, they're coming, they're here. We have to find something to do. We have to get out of here. We have to go somewhere. Now, the cool thing about all this is, remember, we still have Dick Grayson as Deadman. Now keep in mind, this is not Dick Grayson. This is the spirit of Dick Grayson. It's the spirit of Nightwing. I mean, his physical body is dead for all intents and purposes, but being Deadman allows him to come back. It allows him to return and to act in accordance with figuring out what's going on. That's really his mission at the moment, is to figure out what it meant when it said that Joker would return. And of course, when the idea is that the Joker's going to return, well, the first place you go is Arkham Asylum, because that's, the place where the Joker was at the most. Well, the issue is that when Dick Grayson possesses the body of one of the guards and he goes to where the Joker's cell was supposed to be, he doesn't find the Joker, he finds the Spectre, Jim Corrigan. And so if Jim Corrigan is in a cell in Arkham Asylum, then who's the Spectre? Who's posing as the Spectre right now? Now, of course, this whole question gets answered when we basically have, Batman telling all of his guys, pop your super pills, because we're in this fight. Like, we're gonna have to face off against every last one of these guys. Of course, Constantine doesn't do that, and Dr. Fate doesn't do that either. But with them relying on their magics, Dr. Fate basically transforms the interior of the Tower of Fate into what amounts to the Penrose Steps. Now, under normal circumstances, this would be baffling to almost everybody, but the Penrose Steps rely on the fact that you have to walk from one location to the next. When you can fly, it doesn't matter that it's the Penrose Steps, that one step leads to another, that you're just walking around in a paradox. Instead, you're just floating around in midair fighting people. And so it creates a really cool situation because we have people who are fighting upside down, we have people who are fighting sideways. It's really kind of a crazy situation. The issue here is that it doesn't really allow a whole lot of exposition. This is really more of like a comic historian moment when it's just like, and then he punches him, and then they punch them, so on and so forth. It's really just kind of, talking about the chaos and the panic and so on, and all the conflict that's going on. But it's a lot of people settling personal vendettas as well. It's Wonder Woman settling her vendetta with Sinestro for corrupting Superman, so on and so forth. And that's really kind of how this plays out. But in the middle of this conflict, what happens is John Constantine basically pulls his trump card. What he does is he summons Trigon, or at least as close as a person can get to summoning Trigon. What he does is he basically sends out a message to Trigon and says, your daughter is here in the Tower of Fate. In addition to this, the way that he got Trigon to believe that was having the demon Etrigan spread rumors around hell that Superman had kidnapped Raven. So it was basically kind of duping Trigon. Now, the funny thing about this, and this was hilarious to me when I first saw it, the funny thing about this is that Harley Quinn sees Trigon and she's like, it's the dude from Legend. And I was like, yeah, man, what have we here? I love Legend. That's one of my absolute favorite movies. Tim Curry, I loved him in that movie. It's a classic. But it's just Harley Quinn's little bit of humor, that gets thrown in here. And I love that aspect. That's why I love Harley Quinn in Injustice, is because she injects this much needed bit of humor into the story. The issue with this is that with Trigon here, virtually everybody falls before him. Because you got to remember, this is a guy whose level of power is almost on par with the Presence, Lucifer, Morningstar. This is an insane amount of power that Trigon has, and there's basically no one here that can stand against him. We even have that. We've got Wonder Woman, we've got Superman, we've got Sinestro, we've got Hal Jordan. All of them are doing the best they can, and they're having no damage whatsoever, not the slightest. But the whole situation comes into play, it really comes into view when we basically have Dr. Fate and we have John Constantine working together for the purpose of encountering a portal to take them to the House of Mystery. But it's also Dick Grayson, the ghost of Dick Grayson appearing to Batman and saying, look, I need to tell you something. I have to tell you what's going on. I found Jim Corrigan in a straitjacket and he was laughing like he was the Joker. So basically what happens is Dick Grayson's telling Batman, that guy who's the Spectre is not the Spectre. And the question everybody has is, if that's not the Spectre, then who is it? Well, suddenly in the middle of this whole fight with Trigon, we have this energy blast that comes out of nowhere, and it's revealed to us the Spectre is actually Mr. Mxyzptlk. And so it's like, holy cow, like, wow, it's such a crazy situation, because it's just like, this changes everything, because when you have Trigon going on a rampage with that level of power, well, suddenly you have Superman's counter to it. Mr. Mxyzptlk is wildly powerful in his abilities, one of the most powerful beings, if not really the most powerful being in DC Comics, depending on what era you're reading about. There was actually a point, I think, where Mr. Mxyzptlk annihilated the multiverse, so he has all kinds of crazy abilities, but we're talking about a level of power that just cannot be fathomed, where anything that can be done. I mean, that's really it. Everything from warping reality to the whole 9 yards. These guys can do almost anything. And this is brought to the attention when Dick Grayson tells John Constantine Mr. Mxyzptlk was posing as Spectre the entire time. He's working on behalf of Batman. Constantine's response is, well, damn, that's a problem. Because it's a problem no one seemed to account for, that no one seemed to expect. Now, of course, this is just kind of a mishmash of insane amounts of power going against each other. I mean, Superman wakes up, after being knocked out, he's told by Wonder Woman, Mr. Mxyzptlk is here, but as Tom Taylor's showing us how the power of Mxyzptlk and Trigon match up against each other, that they seem virtually equal in terms of their abilities. No matter what Mr. Mxyzptlk does to Trigon, Trigon's able to counter. They're basically able to stave off each other's own abilities. Now, in response to this, with everybody at the House of Mystery, the statement is made, look, we gotta get out of here. Like, we've gotta go. Wonder Woman's like, this is an insane amount of power. We cannot stand against this. They'll destroy the Tower of Fate and they'll destroy us if we don't leave. And so Mxyzptlk's like, you know what, that's a good idea. Snaps his fingers and just whisks everybody out of there and sends them over to the House of Mystery and the House of Secrets, where they all basically fight each other. Now, to kind of sidetrack here for a second, the House of Mystery and the House of Secrets are like this weird Vertigo thing that goes on, where it's like the House of Mystery is like a sentient house. Almost no one really knows anything about it. I think DC's hinted at where it comes from, but it's just one of these enigmatic things that ties into the whole mystery of magic and sorcery and demons and angels and all that kind of stuff in DC. Again, a lot of this stuff is being pulled out of the Vertigo universe and thrown here into the Injustice universe, and so it's just kind of tossing things that would never normally cross paths. That's why this is so cool, is because we would never really see these characters cross paths that often. I mean, with the exception of Constantine, Zatanna, Dr. Fate, something like that, we would see them cross paths, but going to like the House of Mystery, going to like the Tower of Fate, that's not something that we see on a regular basis in DC Comics, which is one of the reasons why Injustice was so popular when it came out. But in the middle of all this, we basically have the arrival of Swamp Thing. Now, again, this is where things go from bad to worse for the side of Batman, because keep in mind, as someone who's able to manipulate the green, Swamp Thing is able to manipulate the planet Earth itself. Not only that, there's magical properties here, so it's not like, the forces of Superman could just easily take out Swamp Thing. That's one of the reasons why Constantine wanted Swamp Thing on his side, because the magical properties of the green would help to negate the powers of Superman. And so because of that, John Constantine is able to make his escape after being ensnared. But then the response, once he jumps back to Dick Grayson and to Dr. Fate, the response is, if we have Swamp Thing here who's able to manipulate the green, we need someone on our side who can manipulate plant life. Well, then Dick Grayson's like, well, hell, I have an idea. So he just disappears. Like, he basically just bails out. Now, again, this is just kind of a continued fight between these various characters. Again, there's really not much room for exposition, but it is cool to see a lot of these characters go against each other. Renee Montoya, Hal Jordan, a pairing that we would never normally see. Huntress and Ares, the God of War, again, a pairing that we would normally never see. It's cool to see these things going off, but then we have Superman and we have Batman, again, kind of the crux of this whole battle, where it's basically, look, man, you have to bring this all to an end. Batman's trying to reason with Clark, saying, look, man, this is growing beyond the point that even you can control. This is going to the point of absolute and utter insanity. We're bringing in demons, we're bringing in, these fifth dimensional imps, we're going to like this weird House of Mystery, which is a sentient house that can kind of do whatever it wants to in terms of having magical protection. We have all these insane things happening. Well, in the middle of all this, of course, the Batwing arrives, and we find out that Dick Grayson had traveled to Gotham City, possessed Poison Ivy, flew her to the battlefield and then dropped her off in the ship. So then now we have Poison Ivy, who has command of the Green, fighting on behalf of Batman's team, fighting against Swamp Thing. And so again, this creates all kinds of wild situations, but what Tom Taylor does is he begins the process of kind of wrapping this up relatively fast, in the sense of him really saying, look guys, the level of power that we're seeing here is almost unrivaled. But what we also have are people who are getting carried away with the entirety of the situation. A perfect example is when Wonder Woman is fighting against the Huntress, and Wonder Woman's like, look, we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're doing the right thing. We're making the right call. We're doing all the right things here. You know, we're not tyrants. It's you guys who are screwing everything up. Well, in the face of her making the statement, we're not tyrants, she wraps her lasso of truth around the neck of Huntress and snaps it when she yanks on it. So it's like Wonder Woman is every bit the murderer that she claims she's not. She's every bit as terrible as she claims that she isn't. At the same time, we have Dick Grayson kind of making amends with Batman. Of course, Dick Grayson seizes control of Billy Batson, but he says, hey, look, there's something that you have to know. I never really appreciated you for what you were. I never appreciated you as the father that you were. It's Dick Grayson saying his final moments, you know, saying goodbye to Bruce Wayne. Now, this is necessary. And the reason why is because Bruce has been holding on to the memory of Dick Grayson for so long, but he's been holding on to what he believed Dick Grayson saw him as, which is really more of a sidekick, or really more of a mentor, as opposed to an actual father. And that's the thing, is that in the mind of Bruce Wayne, he kind of felt like he lost a son. He felt like he lost a protege in a lot of different ways, but it's basically Dick Grayson saying, you have to let me go. You have to accept the fact that I'm not coming back. You have to stop Superman. You have to bring this to an end, because that's what you do. That's your job. It's preserving life as best you can. And so because of this, the actions of Trigon, I mean, the kind of energy that he and Mr. Mxyzptlk are putting off gets to the point where they literally start warping reality. I mean, reality itself begins to skew, and it begins to warp. It begins to twist and turn to the point that people begin to have to just kind of bail out. I mean, it's really just like, hey guys, look, we can't compete with this kind of power. Now, of course, the House of Mystery offers some measure of protection with regards to keeping the various superheroes away from this skewing, this warping of reality. The issue is that the more powerful this grows, the more that this protection begins to disappear. And the reason why is because with the kind of energy that Mxyzptlk and Trigon are putting off, their power literally just becomes like a black hole, in the sense that it just sucks in magical energy around them, to the point that like Sinestro can't use his powers anymore. They're being transferred to the plane of hell. And so Superman's ability to tap into the sun doesn't exist anymore. The effects of the green begin to wear off. I mean, everybody that has any measure of superpower begins to lose their abilities. They begin to turn into humans, to the point that everything they know and love starts to vanish. And so what happens is Barry Allen speaks up and says, look man, like, I'm the fastest man alive. I promise you, let me go. I will grab everyone who's out there. I will bring him here, you know, and we'll find a way to basically save ourselves from this conflict, to whisk ourselves away so we don't have to deal with this. The problem is that in the middle of this whole conflict, it's too late for Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing can't be moved. He can't leave. He's basically left behind. And the result is that he's transferred to hell in the middle of all this. And so Swamp Thing is essentially dead in the Injustice universe. But what we do is we find out that where Barry Allen had raced off to save the various members of the Justice League, that when he did this, he had taken them to the House of Secrets. And these are two different locations that basically stand in opposite of each other. They both have their own little principles, the aspects of them that make them kind of unique. But it's cool here in the sense that they're just two buildings, the only two buildings that are really left on this plane of existence, that have some measure of protection about them. The problem is, again, this protection's wearing off extremely fast. It's wearing off very, very quick. And so the goal here is to do what they can to get out as fast as they can. And so what happens is John Constantine and a handful of others have just enough magical energy left in order to try to stave off. The issue is they don't have enough magical energy to basically block what happens with regards to Trigon and Mxyzptlk. And so at this moment, it seems like everything is all said and done. It seems like all things are going to come to an end. Well, then of course we have Billy Batson. Now keep in mind, when Billy Batson becomes, whenever it is that he shouts Shazam, he gets his powers from the pantheon of his gods. And so the idea here is really to create this kind of black hole, so to speak, to send them to the void. Now, to be honest with you guys, I don't really know anything about the Void in DC Comics. The best I've been able to discern is the Void is just like, it's a paradox, in the sense that when a being is sent to the Void, they cease to exist. And it's like this idea, how do you escape from a place that you don't exist in? What Tom Taylor's doing is he's treating the Void as just kind of like this multiversal prison, in the sense that once they're there, once Mxyzptlk and once Trigon are there, they can never leave. They're trapped in there for all eternity. And so what happens is Dr. Fate and Shazam are basically basically combining their powers in the sense that when Billy Batson yells Shazam, Dr. Fate will take what's left of his magic, he'll channel it into Trigon and into Mxyzptlk, and it'll teleport them to the void. Now keep in mind, the reason why this works is because the energy that Billy Batson gains comes from the inhabitants of the Rock of Eternity. The reason why this works is because the Rock of Eternity is outside all space and time. It's kind of in the multiverse. And so because of that, it's not like it's within the Injustice universe itself. Instead, Billy Batson's basically deriving his power from a place beyond the multiverse. So the Rock of Eternity is not affected by what's happening here. And so his energy is whole. His energy is solid. It's not like it's been stripped away like Superman or Hal Jordan or anybody else. It's not contingent based on what's going on with the reality around them. And this is what Dr. Fate uses. You know, when Billy Batson yells Shazam, Dr. Fate channels all that energy that's coming from the Rock of Eternity into Trigon and Mxyzptlk itself, and literally just like teleports them away. Now, something I want to point out here is that the energy that Billy Batson is drawing on does not make him equal in power to Mxyzptlk and Trigon. What it does is it basically just allows Billy Batson and Dr. Fate to push them away. So it's almost like opening a portal. You don't have to be as powerful as a being in order to open a portal and push them through. You just have to be powerful enough to open a portal to a certain location. That's really what's going on here. And so because of that, Trigon and Mxyzptlk are effectively out of the equation. They're gone. All of reality begins to go back to its normal state. The whole skewing and bending begins to go away. And with Superman and Batman's forces back in their own separate locations, it seemed like Tom Taylor was effectively wrapping this up. The problem is the way that year 3 ends, it doesn't go directly into the video game series. Instead, there's still storytelling left to be told with a sense of how we end up in that particular situation. And so because of that, years 4 and 5 kind of go into that. But what takes place here is Batman goes to see John Constantine, and this is when we find out everything from the beginning of the story all the way to the end was all planned out by Constantine. There were things like Mxyzptlk that weren't accounted for, but the idea of like summoning Trigon and having Trigon join the fight only to turn around and banish him from Earth was basically all done by Constantine. Now, of course, Constantine's overall goal was to basically eliminate Trigon, whether it was because Superman and the Justice League panicked and knew they had to destroy Trigon because Trigon would destroy the Earth. Whatever the motivation happened to have been, all the superheroes would have rallied behind Superman. They would have fought off Trigon. Maybe they would have cast their differences aside and, you know, gone forward in an era of peace. Maybe they would have gone back to fighting each other. But what this would have done is it would have gotten rid of everybody that possibly could have challenged John Constantine and put his daughter in danger. And in the end, that was the goal. The goal was to just keep his daughter safe. That was the motivation behind all of this. Every single superhero in this story, everyone who died, everybody who appeared here, they were all used by John Constantine for the purpose of making sure that there would be no one left that could endanger his daughter's life. That was the whole basis behind this segment. That was it. And it was mind-blowing because it was like John Constantine didn't care about the superheroes fighting each other. He didn't care about Superman's regime. He didn't care whether or not Superman was right or Batman was right. It didn't matter to him. All he wanted to do was remove anybody that could have put his daughter's life in danger. It creates a really interesting situation. But again, years 4 and 5 is where it kind of goes off the rails. It's where it kind of goes bonkers. I think at this point, Tom Taylor actually bailed out because he was just tired of Injustice. I think he went off to do Edge of Oblivion. But if you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and yeah, I will catch you all later. Peace.
In this town, we will not tolerate incoherence.